be good to go with us while you also keep up with what your day's affairs are. Now, speaking of the day's affairs, we've had a very deep conversation here on Morning at NTV regarding the coffee deal that we entered in representation of government and in partnership with a coffee company, Uganda Vuchi Coffee Company to be exact. And so many questions have lingered, especially in the wake of the Minister of Agriculture, Frank Tumwebaze, coming out and saying, I was not part of this deal. And yet this is something that falls directly under his docket. We have had so many other stakeholders coming through and also trying to sideline themselves away from this conversation, as well as the intricacies of this coffee deal, in which we could maybe selling Uganda short or becoming slaves once again. Anyway, here to dive into this conversation and what coffee deal actually means for stakeholders more so is a former Minister for Agriculture, and that is Honorable Victoria Sechitoreko. We are honored to have you, Honorable.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Yes.
And I'll be better after my first cup of coffee.
Oh, and what do we have here? Okay, all right. And as Uganda will be better after, of course, our discussion into the matter at hand. Now, of course, as any other ministries and stakeholders, people have washed their hands off this deal, and they continue to wash their hands off this deal. Today in the dailies, we're having MPs being summoned. You do have, MPs summoning the Minister of Finance, and that is Matia Kasaija, and the other stakeholders regarding this coffee deal. And the Ministry of Finance is being put on a hotspot, honestly, in regards to the details of this deal and who it's going to benefit directly and indirectly. Now, I want to find out from you if you've had the privilege of actually internalizing this particular agreement between our government and this company.
Yes, I have read through. But since it is not my job, like full-time job, I do not have all the intimate details, but I have the details which matter.
Okay, all right. And from what you have internalized, which are the stakeholders that have been covered in this agreement?
I think this agreement tries to cover everybody, even if without consulting everybody.
So who is everybody? Because now that's where the Wananchi is challenged. Who is the everybody that they're referring to?
Here, they seem to be referring to everybody who is in the coffee sector, whether you are in production, whether you are in purchasing, processing, exporting. Because when they said they will have first priority, that means all of you move back until they have done, they have had their 60,000 tons of coffee, then everybody can come in line.
And the they here in reference is the coffee company.
The Vince Coffee Company has priority over everybody. So if you have been in production of coffee, they are telling you, you wait for Madam Vince to come and buy your coffee before anybody else is allowed to sell it. I don't even know if you are allowed to roast it and drink it yourself.
Okay. So what does that really mean, Honorable Sechitoreko? Does that mean that if she doesn't buy the coffee, then others are not allowed to engage in the buying of this coffee?
Far from it. For me, what it means is something completely different.
What's your understanding?
It's just garbage.
Okay.
This thing is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And if I was the minister now, I would just tell everybody, Simbe mwanyizo osirike. Plant your coffee and keep quiet.
Yes. That's a good tagline. I can see that former minister is up to date with the slang of today. Now, of course, you have talked about the everybody and also the fact that unless Madame Vichy does not buy your coffee, others are not really permitted to, or you're not even allowed to sell to others. We do have the Bugisu Cooperative Union that has come out to threaten to go to actually court to challenge this particular agreement that you were privileged to have a look at, and they're referring to it as one that will kill coffee farming, but more so will actually make farmers slaves.
There is no way such a little agreement, which is completely out of line, can kill anything. Like I said, if you are in the coffee sector, just ignore it. Because the moment your line minister, who is Tumwebaze, tells you that I'm not part of it, how are they going to enforce it? Are they going to send the army, the police, or SFC? So, for me, let Salah pressure, let Ugandans relax and get on with their work. Okay. But on a positive note, for me, this is one of the best things that has ever happened to the coffee sector.
How so?
Because for the first time, we are frontline. you know, we are headlines. Everybody is talking about coffee. Previously, even if we were bringing in all that money, come COVID, come whatever, we bring in money, we were just the forgotten brick. But now we are the rock.
All right. Now, again, back to the agreement that is between the government of Uganda and the company, the Vuti Coffee Company, Uganda. We're looking at the things that they've given them as leeway to be able to then benefit from the coffee, retrieve everything they've invested in coffee in Uganda, then they can walk out of the market. I don't know if that's the end result of that arrangement, but let's look at the things that they've been exempted from. You're looking at exemption from import duty. You're looking at exemption, value-added taxes, excise duties, stamp duty, and also corporate income tax. In one way or another, the expectation is that with such an arrangement, it should be able to bring back money into the country through the taxation process or the taxation arm, which is the Uganda Revenue Authority, to then benefit the other Ugandan that is not directly injected into coffee. But that doesn't seem to be the arrangement here. So if they're tax-free of anything that is worth coming back into the national treasury to benefit Ugandans, then how is this actually benefiting?
You know, the Minister of Finance is not totally stupid. I'm definitely sure he gave all those well knowing that they are not going to perform. So there is nothing to exempt.
But why do you sign a deal when you very much are rest assured there's not going to be performance?
That one, Honorable Kasaija would have to answer.
Right.
But in my view, looking at that agreement and knowing the Constitution, knowing all the, like the UCDA Act, the Agriculture Act and everything, there's no way that thing can stand the light of day.
Okay, all right. So if you were the Minister of Agriculture at such a time as this, in the presence of such a deal on your table, and if it was presented to you, how would you then realign it to then benefit they that they refer to in the agreement, the farmers directly, the traders, the processing, the distributors?
I wouldn't realign it to anything if it was given to me, because during my days most of our communication was hard copy. I would just get that copy, tear it into pieces, throw it in my waste basket and get on with my work.
Okay.
Because the mandates in government are very clear. Minister of Finance have their job, Minister of Agriculture have their job. So the moment you stray into my lane, and I throw in the dustbin.
Okay, all right. In other words, what you're trying to say is that Ministry of Agriculture should have an upper hand
Certainly.
of this arrangement.
Because that is their
Ministry of
job.
Finance.
Yes, that's their job. Minister of Finance does not even know where coffee is produced. When you talk about Reduced Union, I'm thinking about Ankole Farmer Cooperative, Ankole Coffee Cooperative Union, who have for the last 5 or so years been exporting specialty coffee. I doubt Minister of Finance even knows about them. So if I was...
Later on give them such benefits and incentives.
Exactly.
Yes.
Which actually they don't need, basically because once you follow what is on the ground now, forget about Vince, you get all those without asking. That is one. Two, they are making so much money that they don't have time to waste on this. That is why they have not even come out to comment on anything. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what does it say about the government if such a major deal is on table and players, including the Agricultural Ministry, is not anywhere in the say, neither in consultation about this deal?
Unfortunately, it tells Ugandans how their government is working or not working, that the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. And the left hand is saying, don't worry, we shall be okay.
Okay.
Which is very unfortunate.
Right. Right. Okay. So in your time as the Minister for Agriculture, I'm pretty sure there were some incentives or such deals that you came into agreement with, signed, put pen to paper with. For example, in the sugar sector, I'm sure we had such similarities in terms of arrangements. And we want to assess that in your times, how have they affected agriculture to date?
First of all,
both positive and negative.
During my time, taxation of the agri-sector was not the issue. Increasing the quantity and improving the quality was the issue. That is number one. Number two, we had so much respect of each other that there is no way anybody, I mean, at that time, late my Honorable Mayanja Nkanjo was the minister. He cannot be seen doing such a thing. He was, an economist. he was a lawyer, so there is no way he could have been meandering into other people's lanes like that. When we had the Honorable Chionga, he was a doctor who would spend the whole night reading these documents. Then in the morning, we used the phones a lot. So then finally, we had an unwritten agreement where you never ever embarrass your cabinet colleague in public. We had our little fights, but in the cabinet room, never in public.
Okay, all right. Oh, well, we definitely get an understanding with the Honorable Victoria Sechitoleko, who's a former Minister of Agriculture here in Uganda, and giving us her insight into the coffee deal that is on table and how she has insisted that it's actually not helping stakeholders. If anything, if she was Minister today, she would just do this. But in her capacity, she may not. And now this begs the question, in the presence of such deals, it simply indicates that Uganda has so much potential to impact the world with its coffee.
Exactly.
To be able to tap into the world economy with its coffee.
Yeah.
How then do we bring in the element you have mentioned of increasing the quality and quantity of coffee to dominate on the African continent as well as the rest of the world?
Like I said, the first thing should be actually to continue with that, because currently the coffee prices are fantastic. That is one. Two, I want to encourage everybody, especially you graduates. You went to school, you graduated, I don't care in what subject. Please join the coffee export business. If you don't know how to do it, you organize yourselves and do one of two things. You can come to PSFU, Private Sector Foundation of Uganda. For as long as you are many, we shall put you together and show you how to do it. But how shall we show you? We shall work with UCDA, the Uganda Coffee Development Authority, to teach you how to export. I have met most of the coffee exporters in Uganda. First of all, 3/4 are not Ugandans. They came here to do business. And the question I always ask is, if somebody can live their comfortable Europe, which people are dying to go to, and come to be in Uganda and export coffee and become very rich, what about you who was born and raised on coffee? So I would like to encourage all young people, those who are still thinking what to do, and you see I don't have money and the other, start today. How? Like I said, go talk to UCDA or go talk to PSFU and say, I want to start this business. How do I go about it? Then we shall point you in the right direction and also assure you that you do not need a lot of money. Because most probably what we are going to tell you to do is first intern with an exporter, and there are quite a number of exporters who are ready to do that. So please, forget about the beans and whatever. That is chigumas, waste of time, red herring. Come out, join the coffee sector, and go where the money is.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. There's also been a discussion around the quasi-monopoly of this agreement. Should it actually become a reality? It then brings into question quasi-monopoly of the coffee industry here in Uganda. What would be the implications of that? One to the wananchi farmer, or Musiligwe Mwanje Gwaina, and then also to
First
the
of
country.
all, there is no way it can happen. Basically because of the fundamental laws of Uganda. You own your coffee trees. So not even the president can come to your house and say, you see, this coffee is going to Vince. So that one is not going to happen. Then two, this particular company is saying that for the first year, they need 28,000 tons. Last year, Uganda produced 8 million bags of coffee. So when we say 20%, so 28 tons or 28,000 tons of coffee, we are talking about like 5% of all coffee. So 95% of 8 million bags is still there. Who is going to handle it? That is one. Two, when somebody claims that they are taking the majority or they've got the priority, out of 100, when you take 5 and you say you have got the priority, really does it matter? So when I say to Ugandans, you plant your coffee, keep quiet, and continue with the existing rules, because that contract does not change the constitution, does not change the laws, the acts of parliament which are already in place, neither do they change our social way of doing business. Okay. So if you are already a company in Uganda exporting your coffee, I'm glad you are just keeping quiet and getting on with your business. Then if you are planning to plant coffee now that it is raining, I want to assure you, you go ahead and plant your coffee, because these beans, you will never, I doubt that after this storm in a teacup, or a coffee cup, we shall hear about it.
Indeed, a storm in a coffee cup. You've talked about fundamental laws. You've talked about existing rules that should be governing and protecting the stakeholders presently in Uganda regarding coffee. Could you just remind some of us about these? Maybe some of the stakeholders have ignored them because they fear that they no longer will apply because of the presence of this conversation.
There is no way anybody can ignore the Coffee Development Authority Act, because that is where, which was passed about 2 years ago, that is where all the do's and the don'ts are based. There is nowhere in there, if anything, it emphasizes the possibility of everybody participating. When, for example, they say, if you are growing coffee, register yourself. They are trying to set up a value chain so that if I'm a coffee grower and I know that you are my off-taker, you know me, so you can come to me and say, oh please, last time you did not get good money because you did not dry your coffee very well. This time please do ABCD. So all that is under UCDA. If this contract had included something like under the guidance and the enforcement of UCDA, this and this is going to happen, I would worry. But what I saw on paper is really, you know, it's like when a child is crying for a knife and you give her a piece of wood and say, okay, you are also having a knife. That's what they gave Madam Vince.
Okay, all right. Of course, we continue to have this conversation. The president of the country did come out to earlier state, especially in his inauguration speech. He talked about the dream of adding value to Uganda's exports, especially coffee. How much or how more can we add value to exports, especially in reference to coffee?
First of all,
the value additions that presently can be tapped into.
Yes. First of all, if we are talking about value addition is easiest done through a value chain. And when we say value chain, it means you start from the beginning, and when you come to the consumer, you stop. So the first thing and most important thing is for Chituza, that is where coffee research in Uganda is taking place, and Wijinyanya, so one does Arabic, the other does Robusta. For those to do continue doing their job, looking at the size of the grain, you know, that bean after we have hollowed it. Because apparently the bigger, the better. But it's so difficult to make it big, so we need research. So when you go to plant, they have to make sure, extension services, which is now being revamped, should make sure that you plant what Chituza and Wijinyanya have released recently. If on the other hand, you inherited your grandmother's garden and you are tending it, once again, those extension workers will help you. You cut off whatever is old, you fertilize, you mulch, you pick properly, you definitely get a much bigger bean. Then once again, those people in extension will work with you when it comes to picking and when it comes to drying. This is the moment at which we are suggesting that cooperatives should be supported to come back in business, so that at that time, when it comes to marketing, at least every village or every parish, now that we are going parish model, if you are growing coffee, has a coffee buyer who is known, not sitting there and waiting for somebody to come with a bicycle and a sack to say, I'll give you this amount of money. So if we are talking about value, you add value onto what you are planting, how you are managing what you are planting, how you are picking it, drying it, transporting it. Because sometimes, especially like at this time, if anybody is transporting coffee, it is confusing. You wake up and it is shining, then midday it is raining.
There's a rain.
Exactly.
When you're en route
and
to the processing plant.
Coffee is so sensitive. It cannot, once you have started, you have picked it from the tree, you have got to continue reducing the moisture until you process it. If for whatever reason, God help you, there is any water, that will definitely affect its quality. It will not be completely off, but it will affect its quality. If anybody has ever participated in a coffee tasting, you know, we call it cupping, then you feel it. You actually sense it when they tell you, this coffee was when it was picked during the wet season, because I'm sure if you come from a coffee growing place and you are a child and a girl child, your parents would go somewhere and tell you, "Enkuba tekube mwanyi," then it starts drizzling. So you put your hand out like this and say, "This is very little, I can leave the coffee outside." You are already bringing the quality of your coffee down. So we go all the way. We start hiring. Some people's factories are so old, they bruise the beans as they are hurling. Now, when we talk about adding value addition to coffee, the value has to grow with this bean. Now, when we get the green bean, which we have been exporting all this time, you can, even at that time, if you have done things right, let me comment on Arabica first. If you are dealing in Arabica and you have done everything right, wet processing, drying properly, everything is clean, and you have maybe from around Vijinyanya, they have the biggest coffee bean I've ever seen in this world. And you have your sack of this special coffee. In international language, we call it specialty coffee. That one bag of about 60 kilograms can sell for anything not below $20 per kilo. That is why people like Ankole Coffee Cooperative Union is selling specialty coffee. That is the amount of money they are getting, and that is why right now they are not wasting their time discussing these beans, because the beans business has nothing to do with their specialty coffee.
So the bag would roughly go for about 4 million shillings.
You can get that.
60 kilograms.
Exactly.
Wow.
If you are in specialty coffee. But not everybody is going to go into specialty coffee. If you are from Robusta, you can have what we call commercial coffee. But this coffee ranges, you know, we have a screen. Now, if your bean is, let's say, size 18, which is really big, a big bean, you have this commercial coffee, and once again, you will not get less than $10 per kilo. And this has nothing whatsoever to do with ICO or anybody else. This is between you and your buyer. How do you get the buyer? There are so many buyers out there, and I know what I'm talking about because I've attended these meetings, who are looking for this specialty coffee. Why? Either specialty coffee or commercial coffee, but which is consistently the same, which takes us back to the registration, which takes us back to the value. Because if, let's say, you are from Chibinge is my favorite village in Uganda for coffee. If you are from Chibinge, and we have this cooperative society, and you and I and your aunt and my aunt, we are all growing coffee. And we have this extension worker who makes sure we plant properly, we do properly, we harvest properly and all that. Our coffee, 2020, 2021, 2022 and onwards, will taste the same. So these restaurants in Europe and the United States, which serve special coffee, where people kill, you know, that this morning they have to run to that restaurant, they need that consistent taste from January to December.
Yes.
That is why we call it specialty coffee. And that is why they are ready to pay that amount of money. And that is why I'm encouraging you young people to go into this business, because you speak the language. You don't even have to go there. You would sell your coffee digitally. Only, of course, these specialty coffee buyers normally get excited and come to visit you. What is wrong with that? Then you can roast some coffee, give them a taste, and also show them your garden. And you want, this will be your second job, while the other one is your first
That
job.
is very true. You have also hinted on cooperatives and you know, different circles that have come together to actually be able to uniformly benefit from the specialized coffee, the commercial coffee. However, they were also in one way sidelined. They seem to be struggling in terms of incentives that can aid them to operate in a more favorable environment. How can we enable them to operate in a favorable environment moving forward, so that we can have Uganda as one of the best distributors of coffee in the world?
The first thing really government should do is just listen to them. They are farmers and coffee dealers, even middlemen, are not stupid. So if somebody is intelligent enough to have an acre or 2 or 3 of coffee, listen to them. Like there are some places where I normally go, like when you are driving along Zirobe Road. I don't know why they can't look after those coffee trees. If I was minister, I would go and camp in that village, along that road.
And supervise.
And talk to them.
Monitor.
And wake up with them.
The picking, the drying, and walk them the process.
And listen to them and say, what is happening here? This is your money. So, as for me, as far as I'm concerned, most of these people are on the right path, but what do the cooperatives need? Sorry. What should be done with and for the cooperatives?
Right.
You see, in order for you and I to survive, we have our heads. But most of these cooperative societies, they are societies. They don't have heads. That is one. Two, they are being managed by people who have never managed anything else. They don't even understand the rules and regulations of cooperative society.
Okay.
Unfortunately, these wonderful officers, the experts, who have got the job of being cooperative officer, have no idea whatsoever what cooperatives is about, because what they studied at college is not cooperatives. Most of these people did BCom and so on and so forth. And as you remember, the only time you people, young people, were taught about coffee is when you are told it is a cash crop.
In SST?
Yes. Now, that does not teach you how to manage a coffee cooperative society and maybe grow it into a union. Because what I find very interesting is Masaka Cooperative Union. Masaka Cooperative Union yaliwo atakulaba. Masaka Cooperative Union, you couldn't joke with them. But now they are there like firewood being lit from very wet firewood. Chibinge Cooperative Society is part of Masaka Cooperative Union. But Masaka Cooperative Union is not exporting that special coffee I'm talking about. It is Chibinge which has somehow, with the support of PSFU, come out, and they are really making the money for that particular part. So if I was to grow the cooperative societies, I wouldn't mind about the circles. I would go to these circles and handhold them without emphasizing too much on the legalities. In Rusoga, we have a saying which says, "Eiteka balisomera munove." If I don't like you, then I will get out the book and read the law to you. You see, this is what the law says. Now, these people who are supposed to work with the young circles should know that these people are trying their best. They are new at what they are doing. And if they knew everything, you wouldn't have a job in the first place. So, teach them that there is no reason, for example, why if we start our cooperative union, and society, and you are our MP, there is no law which allows you to put money in our cooperative society. You are putting this money there as who? Because there is a limit beyond which a single member cannot own so many shares. So if you are not buying shares, what is this gift for? Because that is how we are spoiling things.
Control.
Exactly.
Yes.
Control. Why do you want to control? Like, you could be a teacher in Kampala, and for us we are in Chibinge. You come give us 4 million and we vote you when you have no idea whatsoever.
You want to milk,
exactly.
But you're not wanting to provide the environment.
Exactly.
Good for.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. You have also made mention of factories, and one of the underlying things in there in that agreement is the fact that this company, Uganda Vici Coffee Company, will actually be establishing a processing plant in Kampala. And much as this is the capital, central, it does say something about the availability of processing plants across the country, factories for coffee across the country, that this one individual will dictate that it is put in Kampala. That means people from the north, the west, the east, the south have to bring it down to Kampala for processing at their own cost.
Like I said, first year they are going to handle 28,000 tons. That comes from
of the 8 million.
Of the 8 million. So, I think my comment there is live and let live.
Okay.
That is one. Two, on the probability of this coffee powder and coffee pills, as they call them, coming out, my comment there would be, let us wait and see. The taste of the pudding is in the eating. Okay. We are here. They want their 28,000 tons of coffee. They'll get it. Even a tiny district like Kalangala can supply that, and the rest of Uganda will not even know what happened. Okay,
but then what does this say or depict in regards to factory and processing of coffee across the country?
The problem you have, which I should tell you so that you know why I'm answering the way I'm answering, is that I know what else is happening in the coffee sector, which you may not be privy to. Because like right now, when I was waiting for this interview, I was actually going through what we are going to do about coffee, how we are going to improve it, and what the people who are in coffee are looking for. So when you ask how this is going to impact those other processors are being handled. That is why I keep laughing. Who is bluffing who? Because government is actually, that is why the minister said I'm not part of this, because the minister is already cooking a big pot for these people. But let me say this and say it clearly to Ugandans. Most of those people who drink our coffee, like those coffee specialty coffee bars as they call them abroad, they don't want their coffee roasted here. They wake up like this morning, they are already roasting the coffee, which they roast it, they serve it. So they actually, because I've walked this journey with our coffee. This part, if you own a coffee bar, you wake up in the morning, first thing, your bag sack, the 60-kilogram sack, and I saw it labeled clearly, Chibinge Coffee Massacre, and I'm like, wow, this is real. So you pick up your sack from your supplier, you take it to your place, you roast it behind there, you make the coffee, and people are lining outside the door. And I'm like, wow, this is how it works. So if that is their culture, it will be difficult for you to say, no, from now on, I want you to take this as coffee powder. What we should aim for, therefore, is selling coffee in East Africa and Africa. I know the whole region is doing coffee, but when it comes to capping, Uganda is always top. So if you want to sell coffee, let's say to the Middle East, you want to sell coffee to our Arab neighbors like the Sudanese, because Sudan takes a lot of our coffee, and West Africa. That is what we should aim for. So what should we do? Going back to adding value, because you can't add value unless you have good human resources. That is why I'm encouraging young people to join the coffee sector. And for example, if you are going to roast this coffee and sell it in Sudan, you need the technology, you need the banking, you need everything. But all that can be arranged. Don't be afraid, and don't all of you go into maize milling and chicken feed making. No, there is money in coffee.
Okay, all right. So you have highlighted that you are engaged in various discussions with the stakeholders in improving coffee and improving what needs to actually be adopted by stakeholders. And
increasing what the farmers get.
So can you give us an insight of where that is exactly right now, that conversation, where it is right now?
In fact, that conversation is quite ripe. The only delay was that when government started feeling and thinking and planning for the whole country as to how to improve coffee and a few other value chains, they had not fully involved the private sector. Now the private sector is on board. We've been having meetings, weekly meetings, and tomorrow we actually have another meeting to discuss exactly what does the coffee sector need in order to get those 20 million bags of coffee, and also to continuously and systematically add value to whatever we are doing.
And what are those considerable elements that are in this dialogue between you and the private sector moving forward? Like
right now, the coffee farmers need fertilizer. The price of fertilizer has more than nearly doubled. So most people cannot afford it. That is one. Two,
before we leave that point, what is causing the doubling of the price for fertilizers?
Ukulele.
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 Ukulele and Lassa.
Yes, Ukulele and Lassa. Yeah. So that is one. Then two, the extension workers. You know, at one time, the Republic of Uganda thought that extension workers were decorative. So they tried managing without them and realized, oh, second thoughts come back. So these extension workers have just come back. Even the extension course had been scraped from Makerere. Therefore, they need a bit of time, sort of a growth curve, in order to be there. But where is that there? If coffee is as important as it sounds, I think it is time for us to have extension workers who are experts in coffee. So what are we looking at? We are looking at adding value to our human resources, making them available so that in the process they can do their work and the farmers do their work and we all have a good product at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Honorable Victoria Sechitoleko. In your parting shots, what's your encouragement to the coffee grower this morning?
One, if you are a coffee grower, it is raining, just tend your garden. If you are planning to plant coffee, don't change your mind. This little beans is too little to worry you. Thirdly, if you are a young person and you are wondering what to do as a side business, go into coffee business. It is okay to start small, even if some people will tell you, oh, you either go big or go home. It is okay to start small. It is okay to start as an intern. But there is money in coffee. So if you are young and you have a little bit of money and common sense in your head, go into the coffee business. I thank you.
Okay, all right. Well, the wisdom, you've had it from Madame Victoria Sechitoleko, and she brings to light the fact that you must be aware of the fundamental governing laws towards this industry and the existing rules. And of course, there's talked about the conversation that is building between us and the private sector, bridging the gap to be able to then enhance coffee in this country. We take a short break, but I trust that that has definitely given you some